A vast, empty desert floor hides a secret only visible from the air. Giant figures, carved into the earth itself, stretch across the California landscape. What are these immense drawings, and who left them here for only the sky to see? These are the Blythe Intaglios, America's own ancient geoglyphs, a profound historical mystery hidden in plain sight. By the end of this, you will understand the startling truths behind these desert giants and the civilization that dared to sculpt the land. We will uncover who made them, grapple with their impossible age, and decode the meaning of their strange animal figure. What does it take for a story to remain written in the earth for 1,000 years? The story of their modern discovery begins with a man flying high above the empty desert. In 1932, a pilot named George Palmer was following the course of the Colorado River when something on the ground caught his eye. From his cockpit, he saw what looked like giant drawings etched into the desert pavement, figures so large they seemed meant for the eyes of the gods. He reported what he saw, but in an era before satellite imagery and widespread air travel, his account drifted into obscurity, a curious footnote. For decades more, the geoglyphs slept under the sun, known only to a handful of local ranchers and indigenous communities who had never forgotten them. It was not until the early 1950s, when the area was surveyed from the air again, that the scientific world finally took notice. When archaeologists first arrived, they faced a landscape of profound silence and scale. The figures are carved into the desert's dark, rocky surface, a layer of pebbles stained dark by desert varnish. The creators had simply scraped away these darker stones to reveal the lighter, sandy soil beneath, creating lines that can be up to 3 feet wide and a foot deep. But from ground level, standing beside one of these trenches, you are essentially standing in a shallow ditch. The form is utterly lost to you. You cannot see the man, the spiral, the animal. You are a mouse on a giant's fingerprint, unable to comprehend the whole hand. This very quality fueled wild speculation in the early days of their public discovery. To a mid-century public enthralled by flying saucers and science fiction, such colossal, ground-level art seemed impossible for ancient humans. Some wondered if they were landing markers for extraterrestrial visitors or cryptic messages for celestial travelers. The remote and inhospitable location only added to the mystery. The Blythe Intaglios sit in the heart of the Colorado Desert, a place of searing summer heat, little water, and vast, unbroken vistas. To reach them even today requires a deliberate journey down rough, unpaved roads, a commitment that keeps them isolated. This isolation preserved them, but it also meant that for a long time they were relegated to the fringes of archaeology, more a curiosity than a key to understanding the past. The initial challenge was simply believing that the people who lived here could, and would, create something so monumental with such simple tools for an audience they could never physically see. To truly grasp their strangeness, we must first understand what they are. The Blythe Intaglios belong to a rare class of ancient art known as geoglyphs. This simply means giant drawings on the ground. The most famous examples are the Nazca lines in Peru, enormous animal and geometric shapes etched into a high desert plateau. Like the Nazca lines, the Blythe figures are so large their forms only resolve from a high vantage point, a perspective their creators could never physically achieve. But there is a crucial difference. The Nazca lines were made by removing reddish surface pebbles to expose white ground beneath, creating light lines on a dark background. The Blythe Intaglios are the photographic negative of that. Here, the artists cleared away the dark desert pavement, the layer of dark, varnished stones, to reveal a lighter, sandy subsurface. They created dark-lined figures on a lighter field, a reversal of technique that speaks to the unique canvas of the Colorado Desert. The site itself consists of 6 distinct figures spread across 3 low rises. The most prominent are the 2 human forms. One is a sprawling male figure over 170 feet long with outstretched arms and legs. the other is a smaller, more compact human shape. Then there is the mysterious quadruped, a four-legged animal stretching about 55 feet in length. For years, it was casually called the horse, an impossibility given the timeline, leading to more speculative theories. Modern interpretation leans toward it representing a mountain lion, a powerful figure in local indigenous cosmology. Accompanying these are abstract designs, a graceful spiral and a set of concentric circles, geometric patterns that feel like signatures or sacred symbols. A final, much smaller humanoid figure sits apart. It is vital to visualize these not as raised mounds like effigy mounds found elsewhere, but as cleared areas. They are shapes defined by absence, outlines drawn by removing the dark skin of the desert to let the earth's lighter flesh show through. These human figures are the undeniable heart of the site. The largest of them is a colossal being, measuring over 171 feet from head to toe. To put that in perspective, that is longer than the distance between home plate and the pitcher's mound on a baseball diamond. This giant is depicted in a dynamic, almost welcoming posture, with its arms stretched out to the sides and its legs apart. It feels alive, as if captured in a moment of movement or ceremony. The second major human figure is smaller and presented differently. Its posture is more contained, with arms closer to the body, suggesting a sense of stillness or perhaps a different role in whatever story is being told. When you stand at the edge of these cleared outlines, you're walking along a trench that forms a shoulder or a leg, a line that would have taken a team of people days to scrape clean using only simple wooden tools and their hands. But who are these giants? The most compelling answers come from the living descendants of the region's first peoples. For the Mojave and the Quechan tribes, these are not anonymous drawings. They are deeply tied to their creation stories. Oral traditions speak of two central creator beings, Mastamho and Quechan. Mastamho is often described as a powerful lawgiver and hero, the one who shaped the Colorado River and taught the people how to live. Some researchers and tribal members suggest the large, outstretched figure could be a representation of Mastamho, his expansive form mirroring his role in creating the world. The smaller, more static figure might then represent Quechan, another foundational being in their cosmology. Looking closer at the geoglyphs, the details become even more telling. The larger figure appears to have a distinct headdress, a clear marker of importance and identity. Even more notably, both figures are depicted with clear genitalia, a feature that is rare in rock art from this area. This wasn't an accident or graffiti. In the context of creation myths, this explicit portrayal of male figures could be a direct reference to progenitors, to beings responsible for the people and the land itself. It transforms the geoglyphs from simple art into a profound statement of origin, a map of identity written on the desert floor. They are not just pictures of people, they are portraits of gods, a permanent reminder of where the world and the people began. But the human figures are only half the story. A short distance away lies the site's most enigmatic creation, the quadruped. This 55-foot-long animal figure, with its long body, 4 distinct legs and a tail, has sparked debate for decades. From the air, its form is unmistakably an animal in motion, yet pinning down its identity has proven incredibly difficult. The mainstream archaeological view, supported by consultations with local tribes, leans heavily toward it representing a mountain lion. In the cosmology of the Colorado River tribes, the mountain lion is not just a predator, it is a profoundly powerful spiritual being, a symbol of strength, stealth, and leadership. Its depiction here, alongside creator figures, would make perfect symbolic sense, a representation of a powerful natural force woven into the story of the world's creation. The shape of the geoglyph, with what could be interpreted as a long, trailing tail and a robust torso, does align with the profile of a large cat. This interpretation anchors the site firmly within the known spiritual and natural world of its likely creators. However, a more controversial and publicly captivating theory stubbornly persists. To many early observers and even some modern visitors, the figure looks undeniably like a horse. It has the general proportions, the 4 legs, the elongated body. This is where the mystery deepens into a potential paradox. If the geoglyph truly depicts a horse, it shatters our understanding of the site's age. Horses, which originally evolved in North America, went extinct on the continent around 10,000 years ago. They only returned with the arrival of Spanish explorers in the 16th century. So, a horse figure would mean one of 2 startling things. Either the Blythe Intaglios are not ancient at all, but were created sometime after Spanish contact in the 1500s, making them perhaps only a few hundred years old. Or the creators possessed a cultural memory so enduring that they were depicting an animal that had not walked their lands for millennia, a ghost from the Ice Age preserved in story and ritual. The horse theory, while less accepted by scholars, forces us to confront the limits of our knowledge. It highlights the central challenge of dating these ephemeral earthworks. Without organic material buried within the lines themselves, like charcoal or bone, there is nothing to carbon date. The desert is a preserver, but it is not a timekeeper that leaves convenient receipts. So the quadruped remains a riddle, a shape on the ground that could be a revered predator from the surrounding mountains, or a revolutionary anachronism that rewrites the timeline. This single figure holds the key to whether these desert giants are 1,000 years old or a mere 500. Scattered between these giants, the earth holds quieter, more cryptic messages. Alongside the sprawling human and animal forms are 2 abstract designs, a spiral and a set of concentric rings. These are not pictures of anything in the physical world, but pure geometry etched into the desert floor. The spiral is a marvel of precision, a coiled line that winds inward to a central point before unwinding back out. Across countless indigenous cultures in the Americas, from the ancient Puebloans to the tribes of the Great Plains, the spiral is a profound and recurring symbol. It can represent the journey of life, the path of the sun, the cycle of seasons, or the concept of emergence from a sacred center. It speaks of movement, of infinity, of a journey that returns you to your beginning transformed. To find such a universal symbol here connects the Blythe Intaglios to a much wider tapestry of ancient thought. Nearby, the set of concentric circles presents another puzzle. To modern eyes, they might look like a target or a simple sun symbol, yet some researchers and tribal consultants offer a more grounded interpretation, a hunter's trap. This reading sees the circles not as a celestial map, but as a practical diagram, a representation of a corral or snare used for communal hunting. This idea ties the geoglyphs directly to survival, to the communal knowledge required to live in this harsh landscape. The presence of these abstract designs fundamentally complicates the site's story. If the large human figures are portraits of created deities and the quadruped is a powerful spirit animal, what purpose do a spiral and a set of circles serve? They suggest the site was not dedicated to a single story or a one-time event. It may have been a multi-purpose sacred space, a location where different rituals were performed across generations. Perhaps the spiral marked a place for meditation or vision quests, a path to walk in contemplation. The circles could have been the focus of ceremonies to ensure a successful hunt, a way to map a hoped-for outcome onto the land itself. This diversity of forms also hints at a staggering possibility that the Blythe Intaglios were not all created at once. The styles are different, the techniques might vary slightly, the meanings are layered. It is entirely plausible that different groups added to this desert canvas over centuries, even millennia. A people 500 years after the first figures were scraped into the earth might have come to this already hallowed ground and added their own symbol, linking their community to the legacy of the giants. This turns the site from a single statement into a conversation across time, a palimpsest written not on parchment but on the very skin of the desert. This leaves us with the most stubborn question hanging over the entire site, a question that defies a simple answer. Just how old are the Blythe Intaglios? Dating these earthworks is not like dating a piece of pottery or an ancient fire pit. There is no charcoal, no bone, no woven fiber buried within the lines themselves to sample for carbon dating. You cannot simply take a scraping of desert pavement and run it through a lab machine to get a year. The geoglyphs are made of negative space, the absence of material, and dating an absence is a profound archaeological challenge. So, without a scientific receipt, how do we even begin to guess their age? Archaeologists have had to become detectives of the landscape itself. They look at the weathering of the trenches, how the edges have softened over centuries of wind and rare rain. They study the patterns of lichen growth on the exposed lighter soil. Most importantly, they examine the few artifacts found scattered on the surface in the immediate vicinity, not within the lines but around them. These fragments, mostly stone tools and flakes from tool making, are typical of the prehistoric cultures that lived along the lower Colorado River. Based on this cumulative, circumstantial evidence, the current archaeological consensus places their creation somewhere between 450 and 2,000 years ago. That is a massive window of time, spanning from the late Roman Empire to the eve of European contact in the Americas. This broad estimate suggests the Intaglios are truly ancient, a product of a flourishing indigenous culture that mastered this desert long before written history arrived. Yet, not everyone agrees with this timeline. Some researchers, looking at the depth of the trenches and the degree of desert varnish reformation, argue they could be far older, perhaps stretching back several thousand years more. This pushes their origins into a much deeper, mistier past, but the most compelling alternative chronology does not come from a lab, it comes from stories. For the Mojave and Quechan people, the question of when they were made is almost beside the point because the answer exists in a different kind of time. Their oral histories do not speak of the geoglyphs being carved by human hands in a specific century. Instead, they are described as being created during the mythic age of creation itself by the beings depicted within them. In this view, the figures are not representations of Mastamho and Quechan. They are the literal footprints or imprints left by those beings as they shaped the world. This places their origin not in a human historical past, but in a sacred, timeless past that is the foundation of all that came after. This creates a fascinating tension between two ways of knowing. Science offers a plausible, evidence-based range of dates, a human-scale timeline. Oral tradition offers a cosmological truth, a date that is essentially infinite. These perspectives are not necessarily in conflict, but they ask us to hold two ideas at once, that the physical act of scraping the desert pavement may have occurred 1,000 years ago by a community of people, while the meaning and power of those lines transcends any calendar, connecting directly to the moment the world began. This duality is perhaps the geoglyphs' greatest lesson. They are a bridge between a historical event and an eternal story. But who were the hands that scraped these giants into the earth? The most direct answer points to the people who have called this desert home for centuries, the Quechan and Mojave tribes. Their connection to the land is not just historical, it is woven into the very fabric of their identity, with the Colorado River as the central artery of their world. For them, the Intaglios are not a mystery to be solved by outsiders, but a chapter in their own living story. Their oral histories, passed down through countless generations, do not describe the geoglyphs as an archaeological project. Instead, they are landmarks from the time of creation, places where the sacred beings like Mastamho walked and left their imprint on the world. This profound cultural continuity offers the most resonant explanation for the figure's meaning, suggesting the ancestors of these modern tribes are the most likely creators, using the desert as a permanent canvas for their most important narratives. However, the story of human presence in this harsh landscape stretches back far longer than our current tribal distinctions. Long before the Quechan and Mojave cultures formed as we know them, other peoples thrived here. Archaeologists identify a broader cultural tradition known as the Patayan, a term derived from a Mojave word meaning the old people. The Patayan culture flourished along the lower Colorado River and into the surrounding deserts from around 800 to over 1,000 years ago. They were skilled desert dwellers creating pottery, building brush shelters, and practicing floodplain agriculture. Given their deep roots in the region and their timeline, which fits neatly within the broad age estimate for the geoglyphs, many scholars believe the Patayan people were the specific cultural group responsible for the initial creation of the Blythe Intaglios. In this view, the Quechan and Mojave are their direct cultural descendants, inheriting not just the land but the stories and the stewardship of these sacred sites. Yet the desert holds even deeper secrets. Some researchers look at the simplicity of the tool required, a sharpened stick or a hand-held stone scraper, and wonder if the origins could be pushed back further still. Could these geoglyphs be the work of much earlier pre-ceramic cultures, nomadic groups who traversed this region thousands of years before the Patayan ever made a part? These were hunter-gatherers living in a wetter, lusher post-Ice Age landscape, following game and seasonal resources. While they left behind stone tools and temporary campsites, they are not known for monumental earthworks. The idea is speculative, but it underscores a crucial point about this place: human imagination and the drive to mark the land in a significant way may have very ancient roots here. It suggests the Blythe site might represent not a single act of creation, but a tradition that was revived and renewed over millennia. One culture could have established the first figures, and later groups, recognizing their power and sacredness, might have maintained them, repaired the lines after flash floods, or even added new elements like the spiral or the quadruped. This layered possibility transforms the geoglyphs from a static monument into a living dialogue across time. Imagine a Patayan family 1,000 years ago carefully re-clearing the outline of the giant figure, teaching their children the story of Mastamho as they work. Centuries later, a Mojave traveler pauses at the same spot, seeing not an ancient ruin, but a reaffirmation of his people's origin, a site that connects him directly to the creative forces of the world. The authorship then becomes a collective and cumulative act. It belongs to a chain of desert peoples who, across generations, chose to preserve and interact with these powerful symbols on the ground. This continuity itself is the real wonder, a testament to a cultural memory so strong it could keep a message visible on an open desert floor for 1,000 years or more. The lines in the earth are not just a question of who made them, but of who kept them alive. So we are left with these immense figures and the people who might have made them, but the most haunting question remains: why? Why would a community invest such colossal effort into art they could never see? The sheer scale of the work demands a purpose of equal magnitude. One of the most compelling ideas is that the intaglios served as a sacred stage for ceremony. Imagine a gathering at dawn with hundreds of people standing not on the geoglyph, but around its vast perimeter. From their ground-level view, the figure is invisible, but they know its shape intimately. They are not the audience for the picture is the backdrop for their ritual. Dancers could have traced the outlines of the giants, with each step a physical prayer connecting the people to the creator beings depicted below. These might have been initiation rites, where young people learned the stories of Mastamho and Qatar by literally walking in their footsteps, their movements sanctifying the ground. The geoglyph itself becomes a permanent ritual space, a ready-made temple where the mythic past is not just remembered, but physically re-entered with every ceremony. The act of maintaining the lines, of scraping away new growth and encroaching desert varnish, could have been a ritual in itself, a communal act of renewal that strengthened social bonds and reaffirmed their shared history. Another tantalizing possibility looks upward to the sky. Many ancient cultures encoded astronomical knowledge into their landscapes. Could the Blythe Intaglios be a map of the stars? Researchers have scrutinized the orientations of the figures, searching for alignments with the sun during solstices or the rising points of important stars or constellations. While no definitive, overwhelming alignment has been proven, the idea holds a powerful logic. The largest human figure is oriented roughly north-south, a common celestial reference. If certain stars were seen as manifestations of the Creator beings, then carving their images into the earth in precise celestial alignment would forge a permanent bond between the heavens and the land. It would be a way of anchoring the cosmic order into the very soil, ensuring the cycles of seasons, rains, and life would continue. The spiral, a symbol seen across the ancient world, is often linked to celestial movement, perhaps representing the cyclical path of the sun or the turning of the stars. Even without precise modern measurements, the creators would have possessed a deep, experiential knowledge of the sky. Placing these figures in specific locations could have served as a giant calendar or observatory, marking times for planting, harvesting, or holding ceremonies tied to the cosmic dance above the silent desert. Yet not every purpose needs to be spiritual or celestial. In a landscape as vast and open as the Colorado Desert, survival depends on knowing your territory and asserting your presence. The territorial marker theory offers a more pragmatic explanation. These geoglyphs are not hidden, they are placed on prominent rises, visible for miles to anyone who knows how to look. They could have served as colossal clan symbols, announcements etched into the earth itself. A traveling group seeing the distinctive giant figure or the mountain lion from a distance would immediately know which people claimed stewardship over that area, where water sources might be, or where they could seek permission to pass. In a land with limited resources, such clear, permanent signage could prevent conflict and establish social order across a wide region. The figures might represent totemic ancestors, literally drawing a lineage onto the landscape to say, "We are here, we have always been here, this place is part of our story." This transforms the geoglyphs from ritual art into a statement of identity and ownership, a declaration so large it could not be missed or easily erased. The truth likely lies in a combination of all these purposes. Human motivation is rarely singular. The Blythe Intaglios could have been a ceremonial ground, an astronomical marker, and a territorial sign all at once. Their power comes from this very layering of meaning. A solstice ceremony held at the foot of the giant figure would simultaneously honor the gods, mark a crucial seasonal turn, and reinforce the community's connection to that specific piece of land. The geoglyph becomes a multi-purpose tool for living, a focal point that wove together the spiritual, the practical, and the social into one enduring statement. This complexity is what makes them so fascinating. They resist a single, simple explanation. They are a mirror reflecting the rich, interconnected worldview of their creators, for whom the sacred, the celestial, and the territorial were not separate concepts, but different threads in the same, tightly woven tapestry of life in a demanding land. The desert sky above Blythe is a vast, unpolluted dome, a perfect canvas for the stars. This has led many to look upward for the ultimate key to the geoglyphs, asking if these earthbound giants are actually a reflection of the celestial ones. The astronomical theory proposes that the intaglios are not just art, but a sophisticated map of the heavens, permanently fixed to the land below. Researchers have carefully measured the orientations of the figures, searching for alignments with the rising or setting sun on solstices or equinoxes, or with the positions of bright stars as they appeared centuries ago. One compelling claim suggests the largest human figure, with its outstretched arms and legs, mirrors the form of the constellation Orion, the hunter, a pattern of stars recognized across human cultures. Others have looked for connections to the star Sirius or to the path of the Milky Way as it arches across the night sky. The idea is powerful that the creators were anchoring their myths to the predictable, eternal cycles of the cosmos, turning the desert floor into a colossal observatory. For the Mojave and Quechan peoples, this connection feels deeply natural. In their cosmology, the celestial and the earthly are not separate realms. The stars, the sun, and the moon are active participants in the story of creation, often seen as manifestations or companions of the very beings depicted in the geoglyphs. Mastamho, the central creator figure, is intimately tied to the sun and the cycle of the seasons. If the large human figure represents Mastamho, then aligning his earthly image with a specific constellation or celestial event would be a way of synchronizing the community with the rhythm of the universe. It creates a sacred equation where a ceremony performed at the foot of the geoglyph during a certain star's rise would directly invoke the power and presence of the creator. This transforms the site from a passive image into an active instrument, a mechanism for ensuring harmony between the people, their gods, and the turning of the world. But could they function as a practical calendar? Imagine a priest or storyteller standing at a specific point near the spiral on the morning of the winter solstice. As the sun crests the horizon, its first light might strike a particular notch on the distant hills or illuminate one arm of the giant figure in a precise way. That moment, witnessed year after year, would mark a crucial turning point, signaling the time to move camp, to begin a harvest, or to initiate a major ceremony. The geoglyphs in this view are not just pictures, they are sighting lines and markers on a landscape scale clock. The evidence for precise, undeniable alignments, however, remains elusive and debated. The desert landscape has changed over centuries, with subtle shifts in the horizon from erosion. Furthermore, the geoglyphs themselves are not razor-sharp lines, they are broad, weathered trenches, making pinpoint astronomical accuracy difficult to prove. This does not invalidate the theory, it simply refines it. Perhaps the intention was not a perfect scientific alignment, but a symbolic and general one. The creators may have placed the figure to face the general direction of the rising sun in a sacred season, or toward a constellation that held narrative importance. The meaning was in the gesture, in the act of connecting earth and sky, not in achieving the precision of a modern observatory. The true function of the geoglyphs as a star map may live most vividly in the realm of myth. The stories themselves are the map. When the Mojave speak of Mastamho's journey, they are also describing a journey across the sky. By etching his form into the earth in a specific relationship to the landforms and the horizon, they could be charting that celestial story onto a terrestrial scale, creating a place where the myth could be walked, danced, and relived under the very stars that tell it. This makes the Blythe Intaglios a kind of permanent script for a celestial epic, a place where the sky's story is written so large that the land itself becomes the page. Standing on the viewing platform today, the giants are still invisible. You see only a shallow, gravel-lined trench at your feet curving away into the distance. The desert wind is a constant whisper, and the silence feels immense, almost physical. To truly understand the Blythe Intaglios, you must abandon the God's eye view and step down onto the ancient ground. This is where the magic happened, not in seeing the figure, but in walking its path. The modern metal walkway that protects the fragile lines guides your feet, but it also traces a route the creators themselves might have followed. Imagine a line of people not looking down at a picture, but moving in solemn procession along the cleared outline of the great human figure. Their feet would scuff the same pale soil, their chants and songs rising into the dry air, not to observe the giant, but to become part of it, to animate its form with their presence and their prayer. This was likely a ritual landscape, a stage set for ceremonies that brought the community into direct communion with the mythic past. The act of processing along the arm of Mastamho or the spine of the mountain lion was a way of walking with the ancestors, of physically retracing the steps of creation. Each footfall would have been a reaffirmation, each song a vibration that resonated through the earth, activating the dormant power within the lines. It transforms the geoglyph from a static image into a participatory circuit, a path you walk to complete a sacred connection. This experience connects the figures to the wider world around them. The Blythe Intaglios are not an isolated gallery. They are the centerpiece of a vast ritual landscape. Look to the east and you can see the lifeline of the region, the Colorado River, a winding ribbon of blue and green in the harsh desert. To the creators, this was not just a source of water, it was a sacred being, often seen as the physical manifestation of a creator's power. The geoglyphs placed on these high terraces have a direct line of sight to the river. Ceremonies performed here could have been about ensuring the river's flow, giving thanks for its bounty, or reenacting the stories of its creation. The surrounding mountains, dark and hazy on the horizon, were not just landmarks, they were the homes of spirits and the source of powerful animals like the mountain lion. By situating the geoglyphs in this specific spot, the creators wove them into a living tapestry of sacred geography. Every element, the river, the mountains, the open sky, and the figures on the ground, was a character in the same ongoing story. A ceremony at the Intaglios would have been a dialogue with the entire environment, a moment where human rituals synchronized with the spiritual pulse of the land itself. This holistic view helps answer the why. The immense effort was justified because it created a permanent portal, a fixed location where the community could reliably touch the divine, influence the natural world, and cement their identity within a cosmos that was alive and interconnected. The trenches in the earth were not the art was the ritual that happened within them, a performance that used the land as its most profound and enduring prop. Yet for all their endurance across centuries, the Blythe Intaglios now face threats their creators never could have imagined. The greatest danger did not come from the slow creep of time, but from the sudden arrival of modern machines. In the mid-20th century, before the site's profound significance was widely understood, the open desert became a playground for off-road vehicles. Drivers seeking adventure in dune buggies and four-wheel drive trucks saw the flat, cleared terraces not as sacred art, but as perfect racetracks. Tire tracks crisscrossed the ancient lines, gouging deep ruts into the delicate trenches. The giant human figures were scarred, the spiral's graceful curve was broken by tread marks, and the fragile desert pavement surrounding the geoglyphs was churned into dust. This was not vandalism born of malice, but of ignorance, a tragic collision between an ancient, silent monument and a modern culture that had forgotten how to see it. Each tire track erased a piece of the story, blurring lines that had been maintained by human hands for generations. It was a wake-up call, a stark demonstration that these earthworks could not survive the 20th century on their own. Today, the immediate threat of vehicles is held at bay by a simple chain-link fence. The Bureau of Land Management, which oversees the area, erected barriers to keep cars and trucks at a distance. A designated parking area and a raised metal viewing walkway now guide visitors, allowing them to see the figures without touching them. The site's listing on the National Register of Historic Places in 1982 granted it formal recognition and a degree of protection. But fencing alone cannot solve all the new challenges. A slower, more insidious enemy is climate change. The Colorado desert is becoming hotter and drier, with more intense but less frequent rainstorms. When rare, heavy downpours do occur, they can trigger flash floods that pour across the terraces, washing away the carefully cleared lighter soil and depositing new debris into the trenches. Each storm forces a choice: to let nature take its course and risk the geoglyphs fading away, or to intervene with modern restoration, which itself alters the archaeological record. Then there is the quiet damage of countless footsteps. A tourist stepping over the fence for a closer look or a photograph might not see the harm in walking on what looks like bare ground. But the pressure of a single foot can dislodge the dark pebbles that define the edges, causing micro-erosion that, multiplied by hundreds of visitors, gradually softens and blurs the ancient outlines. Lichen and new plant growth, encouraged by dust and moisture from human presence, can also slowly reclaim the cleared areas. This creates a profound dilemma: the balance between public access and preservation. The geoglyphs have power because they connect us to a deep human past, and that connection requires people to experience them. To lock them away entirely would be to lose their meaning for a new generation. Yet every visit, no matter how careful, carries a cost. The management strategy now focuses on managed access, education, and minimal intervention. The walkway keeps people on a fixed path. Interpretive signs explain the fragility of the site, and the hope is that understanding will foster respect. The real preservation work is often invisible, involving careful monitoring, photogrammetric surveys to map minute changes over time, and consultations with the affiliated tribes for whom this is a living heritage site. The battle is no longer against deliberate destruction, but against the cumulative weight of indifference and the changing rhythms of the earth itself. The question becomes, how do we protect a message written in the sand when the winds are growing stronger and more people than ever want to come and read it? The fence is a line in the sand, a modern boundary drawn around an ancient one, reminding us that some stories are too fragile to be left completely open, and that our role has shifted from creators to guardians. The Nazca lines of Peru are a global icon of ancient mystery, but they are not alone. Across the hemisphere in the Colorado Desert, the Blythe Intaglios are America's own, often overlooked answer to those desert drawings. The similarities are startling and speak to a shared human impulse. Both are negative geoglyphs, meaning the art is created by removing material to reveal a contrasting layer beneath. The Nazca people cleared away reddish pebbles on a high plateau to expose pale earth, creating light lines on a dark background. The creators at Blythe did the inverse, scraping away the dark desert pavement to show lighter sand, resulting in dark-lined figures on a lighter field. Both sets of lines are monumental in scale, designed to be seen from above, a perspective their makers could never physically achieve, suggesting they were meant for an audience beyond the human, perhaps the gods themselves or the spirits of the sky. And both sites are shrouded in enduring questions about their precise purpose, fueling theories of astronomical calendars, ritual pathways, and sacred territories. This parallel invention across continents hints at something profound about the human mind, a universal drive to make marks so large they can only be fully comprehended by the heavens. Yet for all their similarities, the differences between Blythe and Nazca are just as telling, and they elevate the American geoglyphs into a category all their own. The Nazca lines are a sprawling gallery of hundreds of designs, a crowded canvas featuring not just animals like the hummingbird and the spider, but intricate geometric shapes and miles of perfectly straight lines that run to the horizon. It is an overwhelming, almost frenetic display of creativity and control over the landscape. Blythe, by contrast, is a study in minimalist power. There are only a handful of figures, but what they lack in number, they make up for in sheer, imposing size. The largest human figure at Blythe is over 170 feet long, dwarfing most of the individual Nazca animal figures. This is not a crowded gallery, but a focused, monumental statement. The setting itself creates another stark contrast. The Nazca lines are laid out on a high, arid plateau, a vast, flat tabletop surrounded by mountains, a stage deliberately chosen for its visibility and permanence. The Blythe Intaglios, however, occupy the floor of a broad desert valley, nestled on 3 low rises near the life-giving Colorado River. This is not a removed, ceremonial plateau, but a space integrated into the living, practical landscape, intimately connected to water and the routes of travel. This crucial difference in location speaks to a possible difference in function. While Nazca may have been a specialized ceremonial zone visited for specific rituals, Blythe might have been part of the daily sacred geography, a landmark woven into the very fabric of territory and identity. The comparison ultimately challenges a common perception that such awe-inspiring ancient wonders exist only in distant, exotic lands like Peru or Egypt. The Blythe Intaglios stand as a powerful reminder that North America holds its own profound mysteries, etched not in stone but in the very skin of the desert. They may be fewer in number, but their scale, their connection to living oral traditions, and their stark, lonely presence in the American Southwest grant them a unique and solemn significance. They are not a copy of Nazca, they are a powerful, independent statement from a different desert, a testament to the fact that the urge to write our biggest stories on the earth itself is a human legacy that knows no single continent. The silence of the desert has always been a canvas for human imagination. When the Blythe Intaglios first captured the modern public's attention, their most defining feature, that they could only be seen from the air, became the seed for a very modern mythology. In an era buzzing with flying saucer reports and the dawn of the space age, these colossal, hidden figures seemed to defy any earthly explanation. A logical question emerged: if the people who made them could never see their own handiwork, then who were they made for? The answer, for many, pointed not to the earth or the sky, but to the stars. Popular theories quickly crystallized around the idea of ancient astronauts. Perhaps these were landing markers for extraterrestrial visitors, giant runways to guide their ships. Maybe they were messages intended for beings orbiting high above, a primitive attempt at cosmic communication. The remote, inhospitable location of the geoglyphs only fed this narrative, painting a picture of a site meant for otherworldly travelers, not human communities. These ideas spread through books, documentaries, and word of mouth, weaving the Blythe Intaglios into the same speculative tapestry as the pyramids of Giza or the Nazca lines. The appeal is understandable. It transforms a mystery into a spectacle, connecting our ancient past to a thrilling, science fiction future. It suggests a lost chapter of history where humans were not alone, and that is a profoundly compelling story. Yet, this compelling story carries a significant cost. In the bright glare of ancient astronaut theories, the indigenous narratives, the living oral histories of the Mojave and Quechan peoples were often pushed into the shadows. Their explanations, grounded in creation and a deep spiritual connection to the land, were sometimes dismissed as mere myth, while the extraterrestrial ideas were presented as revolutionary truth. This created a strange imbalance where the voices of the people most connected to the site were overshadowed by speculative theories from outside. To gently examine these popular ideas, we can contrast them with the evidence on the ground. The ancient astronaut theory often hinges on the assumption that ancient peoples lacked the capability or the motivation for such large-scale projects. But archaeology shows us the exact opposite. The tools needed were simple, sticks and stones, but the social organization was sophisticated. We know from ethnographic studies that communal labor for ritual purposes was a cornerstone of many indigenous cultures. Building a geoglyph could have been a unifying act of faith, a pilgrimage, a project that strengthened community bonds over generations. The idea of them as landing strips falters when you stand on the terrain. The ground is uneven, covered with rocks, utterly unsuitable for any kind of aircraft. As for messages to extraterrestrials, this assumes a universal receiver that thinks like a 20th century human. It is far more likely the messages were for the Creator's own gods, ancestors, and future generations, using a symbolic language rooted in their own world, a language of mountain lions, rivers, and creator beings. This is not to mock the allure of the ancient astronaut idea, but to recognize its role. These theories, however disconnected from archaeological fact, performed a vital service. They made the Blythe Intaglios famous. They sparked public curiosity and drew attention to a site that might have otherwise remained an obscure archaeological footnote. That wave of popular interest ultimately helped fuel efforts to study and protect the geoglyphs. The challenge now is to channel that fascination into a deeper understanding, to move from asking who they were made for to understanding what they meant to the people who stood right here, scraping the earth under the same sun, looking up at the same stars and seeing not alien visitors, but the faces of their own gods in the constellations. The most important stories about the Blythe Intaglios were never lost. They were simply waiting to be heard. For the Quechan and Mojave peoples, these lines in the desert are not a puzzle to be solved by outsiders. They are chapters in a living book, a sacred text written upon the land itself. Their oral histories, passed from elder to child across countless generations, do not speak of anonymous artists, but of the creator beings who walked the earth in the time of beginnings. Central to these stories are Mastamho and Quechan. Mastamho is the great lawgiver and hero, the being who shaped the Colorado River with a staff, who taught the people how to farm, fish, and live in harmony with this demanding land. He is a figure of immense power and benevolence. Many within the tribe see the largest, most expansive human figure at Blythe as a representation of Mastamho, his outstretched arms a gesture of creation and welcome. Quechan, another foundational being, is also woven into this narrative, possibly connected to the second, more compact human form. In this view, the geoglyphs are not artistic interpretations. They are the literal imprints or portraits of these deities, permanent reminders of the moment the world was made right here in this very desert. This transforms the site from an archaeological wonder into a place of profound origin, a direct link to the mythic age. Today, the relationship between the tribes and the Intaglios is multifaceted and deeply felt. They are, first and foremost, sacred sites, places where the spiritual and physical worlds intersect. Visiting them is an act of reverence, a way to connect with the ancestors and the creator beings. They are also historical records, but of a different kind, not documenting kings or battles, but preserving the foundational identity of a people. The figures are a source of immense cultural pride, a visible testament to the sophistication, spiritual depth, and enduring presence of native nations in a landscape that many mistakenly see as empty. This living connection has fueled a vital movement for inclusion and respect. For decades, the management and interpretation of the Blythe Intaglios were led by federal agencies and archaeologists, often with little input from the tribes for whom the site holds the deepest meaning. That has begun to change. Through persistent advocacy, the Quechan and Mojave tribes are now actively involved in consultations about the site's preservation and presentation. They work to ensure that the signs visitors read tell more than just the archaeological facts. They tell the stories of Mastamho. They advocate for protection measures that respect the site's spiritual significance, not just its historical value. This collaborative effort is a form of cultural revival, a reclaiming of narrative authority. It ensures that the ongoing story of the Blythe Intaglios is not just about what was found, but about who has always known and what they have always remembered. The giants in the desert, it turns out, never fell silent. We just needed to learn how to listen. But the giants we know may not be the only ones. Scattered across the historical record are tantalizing whispers of other figures, lost to time and the relentless desert. Early explorers and pilots, after the initial discovery at Blythe, reported seeing similar, fainter lines etched into other terraces along the Colorado River. One account from the 1940s describes a massive human form near Parker, Arizona, a figure that has never been formally documented or studied. Over the decades, ranchers and hikers have occasionally stumbled upon strange alignments of rocks or subtle depressions that seem too geometric to be natural, only to have the traces vanish under shifting sands or new growth after a season of rare rain. These persistent rumors suggest the known Intaglios might not be a solitary gallery, but the most visible survivors of a much larger tradition, a network of sacred drawings spread across the ancient landscape. The question hangs in the dry air: are we looking at a masterpiece or just the most legible page of a vast, buried book? Finding something that was deliberately made to be invisible from the ground is the ultimate archaeological needle in a haystack. This is where modern technology steps in, offering eyes that can see what human surveyors might miss. Archaeologists now use tools like LIDAR, which stands for light detection and ranging. Imagine a laser scanner mounted on a plane or a drone firing millions of light pulses at the ground. These pulses bounce back, and by measuring their return time, a computer can build an incredibly detailed, three-dimensional map of the surface, stripping away vegetation to reveal the bare earth beneath. It can detect the faintest rise or depression, a subtle trench only inches deep that would be completely invisible in a photograph or to someone walking over it. Drone photography, too, allows for systematic, low-altitude surveys of huge areas at a fraction of the cost of manned flights, capturing high-resolution images that can be scrutinized for patterns. These technologies are revolutionizing landscape archaeology, turning the entire desert into a potential site to be scanned and decoded. They offer the first real hope in generations of answering that haunting question, are there more? The discovery of a single new intaglio would be more than just an addition to a map. It would fundamentally reshape our understanding of this ancient practice. If the Blythe Group is unique, it stands as a singular, monumental effort by a specific community for a specific purpose. But if another figure is confirmed 10 or 20 miles away, it changes the story entirely. Suddenly, we are looking at a cultural tradition, a widespread practice that connected communities across a broad region. It suggests a shared symbolic language, a common set of beliefs that compelled different groups to leave their own giant marks upon the land. The location of a new discovery would be a revelation in itself. Would it be another riverside terrace reinforcing the connection to the life-giving Colorado? Or would it be found farther inland near a mountain pass or a rare spring, marking a different kind of sacred or territorial boundary? The style of a new figure would speak volumes. A similar human form would suggest a continuity of myth, while a completely new animal or geometric shape would reveal a diversity of expression we never knew existed. Each new line scraped into the digital map would add a word, a sentence, to a story we have only begun to read. It would tell us that the impulse to write with the earth was not a fleeting inspiration, but a deep-seated, enduring part of life in this desert, a conversation in giant script that echoed across the hills for centuries. The search continues, not just for lines in the sand, but for the true scale of a vanished world's imagination. Precision on such a colossal scale seems impossible without a bird's-eye view. So how did the creators of the Blythe Intaglios achieve such clean, recognizable forms? The answer lies not in magic or alien technology, but in a brilliant application of simple geometry and coordinated human effort. The first and most critical step was the master plan. Before a single stone was moved, someone had to conceive the final image. It is likely the shaman or artist began with a small-scale model, sketching the figure in the sand or perhaps weaving its pattern into a basket. This model served as the sacred blueprint. To transfer this design onto the giant canvas of the desert, they would have used a technique still employed by surveyors today, scaling up with ropes and stakes. Imagine a team starting from a central point, perhaps the navel of the giant human figure. Using a long, taut rope as a compass, they could sweep a perfect circle to define the head. Straight lines for arms and legs could be created by sighting along rows of stakes hammered into the ground. The spiral, that graceful coil, could be formed by anchoring a rope at the center and walking in an ever-widening circle, marking the path at regular intervals. This methodical process transformed an ephemeral idea into a physical map of stakes and strings laid out across the desert pavement, a dotted outline waiting to be carved. The tools for the actual carving were as simple as the planning was clever. The primary instrument was likely a digging stick, a hardened piece of wood used for millennia to till soil and dig for roots. Workers would have used these sticks to pry up the dark, varnished stones that formed the desert's surface layer. Others would have followed behind, gathering the loosened rocks into baskets or woven carriers and carrying them away from the site, piling them along the edges or dispersing them into the surrounding desert. This was not a task of excavation but of meticulous clearing, a careful unveiling of the lighter earth beneath. The trenches are not deep, often only about a foot, but they are wide, sometimes 3 feet across, requiring the removal of a significant volume of heavy rock. This leads to the most awe-inspiring aspect, the sheer human power required. Creating even one of these figures was not the work of a single family or a weekend project. It was a monumental communal undertaking, a social event woven into the fabric of ritual. We can envision a gathering of the entire community, perhaps during a cooler season when food was plentiful. Teams would take shifts, some prying stones, others carrying them away, while elders or spiritual leaders supervised from the staked outline, ensuring the proportions stayed true to the sacred design. Songs and chants likely kept the rhythm of the work, transforming back-breaking labor into a powerful act of collective devotion. The project might have spanned an entire dry season, or even been a recurring annual event, with generations returning to maintain and deepen the line. This is where the true genius reveals itself. The creators did not need to see the finished figure from above because they were building it from the inside out, one measured step, one aligned stake, one basket of stones at a time. Their precision was not visual, it was procedural, embedded in the careful methodology passed down through tradition. The final, perfect form emerged from the faithful execution of a shared plan, a testament to what a community, united by a common vision and guided by simple tools, can literally move mountains, or in this case, reveal the giants sleeping just beneath the stones. The desert we see today is a place of extremes, but 1,000 years ago, the stage was set differently. The climate was likely slightly cooler and wetter, with the Colorado River running higher and more consistently through its channel. This was not a lush paradise, but a marginally more forgiving version of the stark landscape we know. Life clustered tightly along the river's green ribbon, a corridor of cottonwood and willow trees that provided shade, building materials, and a home for countless birds. Beyond this narrow band of life, the true desert began, a world of creosote bush, ocotillo, and the hardy, deep-rooted mesquite trees. This was a land of profound scarcity, where every resource was precious and knowledge of the environment meant the difference between life and death. For the people who lived here, survival was a sophisticated science. They harvested mesquite beans, grinding them into a nutritious flour. They roasted the hearts of agave plants in stone-lined pits, a process that transformed the tough plant into sweet, sustaining food. They tracked bighorn sheep across the rocky slopes and set clever snares for rabbits and other small game. The river itself was a generous but demanding provider, offering fish like the humpback chub and fertile soil for planting crops of corn, beans, and squash in its seasonal floodplains. This paints a crucial picture. These were not a people on the brink of collapse, constantly scrambling for their next meal. They were successful, resilient desert dwellers who had mastered a complex economy of foraging, hunting, and agriculture. Their calendar was dictated by the river's pulse and the cycles of desert plants, creating rhythms of plenty and lean times that they understood intimately. It is within this context of hard-won stability that the geoglyphs make the most sense. The immense labor required to create them represents a surplus, not of food alone, but of time and social cohesion. You only invest weeks or months of communal effort into a project that yields no immediate physical sustenance if your basic needs are securely met. The geoglyphs are, in essence, a luxury of the spirit. They speak of a society confident enough in its relationship with the land to turn its attention skyward, to invest in a dialogue with the gods and the cosmos. The act of creation itself may have been a form of spiritual insurance, a ritual to ensure the river continued to flow, the rains arrived in season, and the bighorn sheep remained plentiful. By etching their most sacred stories into the earth, they were not just making art, they were anchoring their world, using the very land that sustained them to affirm the cosmic order that made that sustenance possible. The harshness of the desert did not stifle their creativity. It demanded it, focusing their spiritual energy into a permanent, monumental form that declared, "We are here, we belong, and we understand the deep patterns of this world." Even after all we have uncovered, the desert giants guard their deepest secrets. The sheer size of the figures is the first and most obvious puzzle. Why create something 170 feet long? The practical answer involves visibility from a distance, but the spiritual answer is far more profound. This scale suggests the figures were not meant to represent ordinary humans, but beings of mythic power, entities so vast that only a canvas the size of a hillside could contain them. It was an act of devotion measured in footsteps and sweat, a physical offering meant to match the grandeur of the gods they honored. This leads directly to the second, haunting question: why make art you can never see? For the creators, the act of making may have been more important than the act of seeing. The process itself, the communal labor, the chanting, the careful following of the sacred plan, that was the ritual. The final image belonged not to them, but to the landscape and to the sky. It was a gift, a permanent prayer etched into the earth for the spirits above to witness. Their satisfaction came from knowing the figure was there, properly made, a correct and enduring part of the world's order, not from standing back to admire it like a painting on a wall. Then there is the riddle of the quadruped, a question that refuses to settle. Is it a mountain lion or a horse? Each answer unlocks a different timeline and a different story. If it is a mountain lion, the site aligns perfectly with known indigenous cosmology, a powerful animal spirit standing beside creator gods. But if that shape is indeed a horse, everything changes. It would mean these lines are not 1,000 years old, but perhaps only 400 or 500, created after Spanish horses returned to the continent. Or it would mean the artists possessed a cultural memory stretching back 10,000 years, preserving the image of an Ice Age creature in their stories. This single figure holds the power to quietly rewrite the history books, yet it remains stubbornly silent, its true identity blurred by time and erosion. We can point to the Pathan culture and the ancestors of the Mojave and Quechan as the likely artists, but we still do not know their names, their specific clan, or the exact day they decided to begin. Their precise belief system is a vibrant mosaic we can only reconstruct from fragments, from oral traditions and the patterns they left behind. We see a world where creator beings shaped the river, where animals held spiritual power, and where the stars were part of the story. But the nuances, the specific prayers spoken as they scraped the stones, the exact meaning of the spiral to the person who designed it, these intimate details are lost to the wind. Why this specific location on these three rises and not others? The line of sight to the Colorado River is clear, but was there something more? A confluence of energy, a dream vision, a historical event that happened here. The desert does not say. These are not failures of archaeology, but its very heartbeat. Each unanswered question is an invitation to wonder, a reminder that the past is not a puzzle to be completed, but a conversation that never truly ends. The enduring mystery is the point. It draws us back, encouraging new looks with new technologies, and demanding that we listen more closely to the living voices of the tribes. The Blythe Intaglios teach us that some stories are meant to be lived with, not solved, their power lying as much in what we do not know as in what we do. They ask us to be comfortable with the unknown, to stand at the edge of that shallow trench and feel the vast, quiet weight of a question that has lasted 1,000 years. Their artistic power lies in a stunning contradiction, a style that is both brutally simple and overwhelmingly grand. The lines are unadorned, stripped of any intricate detail, yet they coalesce into forms of immense, almost shocking scale. This is art reduced to its essence, a silhouette carved not from darkness but from light, where the negative space speaks louder than any carved relief. Unlike the intricate, multi-colored pictographs found in Southwest caves, which often depict complex scenes of hunting or ceremony, the Intaglios offer a monumental minimalism. There are no crowds of figures, no elaborate headdresses rendered in fine lines, no herds of deer captured in motion. Instead, we get a single, colossal human, a lone animal, a pure spiral. The effect is one of focused intensity, as if the artist sought to capture the very idea of a being, not its fleeting actions. This linear simplicity forces the viewer, or rather, the imagined celestial viewer, to engage with the whole. You do not get lost in details, you are confronted by the totality of a god, a spirit, a cosmic principle made manifest in clean, sweeping lines on the desert floor. When placed beside other indigenous rock art of the region, the contrast is revealing. The petroglyphs pecked into canyon walls often feel like a community bulletin board, a layered accumulation of symbols, handprints, and animal figures added over generations. They invite close inspection, a personal connection as you trace a finger over an ancient groove. The Blythe figures reject that intimacy. They demand distance and altitude. They are not a collection of marks, they are singular, premeditated statements. This suggests a different intent. While a cave painting might record an event or serve as a personal spiritual marker, an intaglio feels like a permanent public declaration. It is less a diary entry and more a cornerstone laid for the entire world to see, literally foundational art. Decoding the symbolism within these stark lines requires reading a language of posture and proportion. The largest human figure, with its arms flung wide and legs firmly planted, communicates a sense of stable, open power. This is not a cowering or active pose, but one of presented authority, as if the being is claiming the space or bestowing a blessing upon it. The smaller human figure, with limbs drawn closer, might suggest receptivity, prayer, or a different role in the narrative, a listener to the larger figure's proclamation. The quadruped, captured with legs poised as if in mid-stride, pulses with potential energy. It is not lying at rest, but seemingly in motion, a symbol of the hunt, of the wildness of the natural world, or of a spiritual guide actively traversing the landscape. These postures are not accidental. They are the primary carriers of meaning in this art form where facial features and clothing are absent. This leads to the profound question of why. Why choose this immensely difficult, large-scale form over the more common and sheltered arts of cave painting or detailed pottery? The answer is written in the relationship between the people and the land itself. In a desert environment where stone outcrops for cave art might be scarce but open vistas are endless, the landscape itself became the most logical and most powerful canvas. Pottery can break and cave walls can only hold so much, but the desert pavement was eternal, stable, and vast. By using the earth as their medium, the creators were doing more than making art. They were merging their sacred stories with the sacred ground. They were not decorating a place, they were transforming the place into the icon. The geoglyph does not sit on the land, it is the land redefined. This act blurs the line between art and landscape architecture, between symbol and territory. It represents a supreme act of belonging, a way to say that our most important stories are not separate from this soil, they are its very skin and bone. The choice of form was therefore a spiritual and practical masterpiece, turning the overwhelming scale of the desert from a challenge into the central feature of their expression, ensuring their message would endure as long as the hills themselves. For centuries, the Blythe Intaglios slept undisturbed because the technology to see them simply did not exist. The story of their modern rediscovery is not just about a lucky flight, it is about a fundamental shift in human perception. The invention of the airplane gifted us the literal bird's-eye view, a perspective that unlocked a hidden layer of history written on the ground. Before the 20th century, even the most curious explorer walking across that desert terrace would have seen only a confusing pattern of shallow ditches and scattered stones. The complete, magnificent form of the giant human figure was invisible, its meaning lost to anyone standing at ground level. People could have lived their entire lives in the shadow of these colossi and never known they were there. This is the profound paradox of geoglyphs. They were created for a vantage point their makers could never physically achieve, and thus remained a secret until humanity itself learned to fly. The shock experienced by pilot George Palmer in 1932 must have been extraordinary. One moment, he is gazing down at the monotonous, repetitive patterns of the Colorado Desert, a tapestry of creosote bushes and dry washes. The next, his brain resolves those seemingly random lines into a coherent, impossible image, a sprawling human form so large it defied logic. That moment of recognition, repeated by pilots over the Nazca Plateau in Peru, marks a turning point in archaeology. The airplane became more than a machine for travel. It transformed into a powerful survey tool, a new kind of eye scanning the planet's skin for clues we had been too close to see. These aerial surveys revealed not just the Blythe figures, but ancient field systems, forgotten roads, and the outlines of buried settlements across the globe. History was no longer just dug up from below, it was suddenly visible from above, written in the subtle scars and patterns of the landscape itself. This technological leap forces us to reflect on a humbling idea. Our understanding of the past is limited by our own point of view. For generations, the narrative of ancient North America was built from what could be found in dig sites and burial mounds, tangible objects held in the hand. The geoglyphs introduced a completely different category of artifact, one defined by empty space and monumental scale, an artifact of relationship between the land and the sky. Without the airplane, they might have remained forever classified as curious but meaningless erosion patterns. Aviation did not just rediscover these sites, it fundamentally changed the questions we could ask. It pushed archaeologists to think about ritual landscapes, about astronomy, and about the sheer ambition of cultures that invested in works meant for a cosmic audience. The view from above did not simply reveal pictures, it revealed intention, a deliberate choice to communicate on a scale that only the horizon or the heavens could fully comprehend. What other stories, we must wonder, are still hidden in plain sight, waiting for the right perspective, the next leap in how we see our world to finally tell their tale? Their journey from a pilot's secret to an American icon is a story of modern discovery itself. For decades after George Palmer's flight, the Blythe Intaglios remained a specialist's footnote, a curious anomaly known mostly to a handful of archaeologists and the local tribes. That began to change in the mid-20th century as the American public developed a growing appetite for mysteries of the ancient world. The geoglyphs started appearing in popular magazines, often nestled between articles on the pyramids and Stonehenge, presented as America's own answer to these global enigmas. They were perfect for the burgeoning medium of television documentaries, offering stunning aerial footage that could fill a screen with their mysterious, sprawling forms. Each mention, each broadcast pulled them a little further from the realm of academic journals and into the realm of public imagination. This recognition culminated in formal honors that cemented their importance. In 1971, the state of California designated the Blythe Intaglios as California Historical Landmark Number 100. More than a decade later, in 1982, they earned a place on the National Register of Historic Places. These were not just bureaucratic stamps, they were official acknowledgments that this site held profound value for the national story, a permanent part of the cultural landscape worthy of preservation and respect. With this recognition came a new kind of visitor. The lonely desert terraces became a destination, a dot on the map for road trippers venturing off Interstate 10. Travel guides began listing them, often with warnings about the rough dirt road and the searing heat, adding an aura of adventure to the pilgrimage. Mystery enthusiasts and fans of the unexplained made the trek, standing on the viewing platform to ponder the same questions that have captivated researchers for generations. For the local community of Blythe, the Intaglios evolved from a local secret to a profound point of pride. They became a symbol of the region's deep and unique history, a reminder that this stretch of desert holds one of the continent's most awe-inspiring ancient wonders. Annual festivals and educational programs began to incorporate the geoglyphs, fostering a sense of stewardship and connection. This transformation from obscurity to icon changed how we see them. They are no longer merely an archaeological curiosity, a puzzle for experts to debate. They have become a shared cultural touchstone, a place where anyone can stand and feel the weight of deep time. They remind us that history is not only found in grand cities or famous battlefields, but can be written in the very soil of a quiet desert, waiting centuries for us to learn how to see it. Their status as an icon is fragile, however, built on a delicate balance between access and preservation, between fame and the silence they need to endure. Reaching the giants requires a deliberate journey into the heart of the desert. Your trip begins by turning off the paved highway onto a network of unpaved roads, a landscape of cracked earth and shimmering heat. A high-clearance vehicle is not just a suggestion, it is a necessity, as the washboard ruts and soft sand can easily strand a standard car. The drive itself becomes part of the experience, a slow passage through a world of creosote bush and distant, hazy mountains, where the only signs of life might be a circling hawk or the swift shadow of a roadrunner. This remoteness is a gift, stripping away the noise of the modern world and preparing you for what comes next. When you finally arrive, you will not see the figures from the parking area. Instead, you walk a short path to a simple metal viewing platform. Step up onto it, and the world below you transforms. From this raised vantage, the colossal human form suddenly resolves from the pattern of rocks and trenches. It is a moment of pure revelation, the hidden image snapping into focus, connecting you directly to the ancient intent. The silence here is profound, broken only by the wind and the crunch of your own footsteps on the gravel path. Interpretive signs offer context, blending archaeological findings with the sacred narratives of the Mojave and Quechan peoples. This is not a theme park. There are no crowds, no vendors, no sound but the desert itself. Your visit is a pilgrimage, a quiet audience with a 1,000-year-old mystery. With that privilege comes profound responsibility. The lines are achingly fragile. Always stay on the designated walkways, never step over the protective fencing, and never attempt to walk on the geoglyphs themselves. The pressure of a single foot can dislodge the dark stones that define these ancient lines, causing damage that can never be undone. Carry in all the water you will need and carry out every piece of trash, leaving no trace of your passage. The greatest respect you can offer is to be a guardian in that moment, to witness the mystery without imposing upon it, ensuring these silent giants remain for the next pilgrim who makes the long, hot journey to stand in awe beneath the vast, open sky. The silent conversation between past and future is written in those fragile lines. Protecting the Blythe Intaglios is no longer just about fencing them off. It is a dynamic race against time, blending cutting-edge science with ancient wisdom. New research aims to solve the oldest mysteries with the newest tools. Scientists are exploring advanced geological dating techniques like optically stimulated luminescence. This method doesn't date the lines themselves, but the last time the grains of sand within them were exposed to sunlight. By carefully sampling the base of a trench, they might finally pin down a more precise age, narrowing that vast window from 2,000 years to a specific century. Soil analysis is another frontier, examining the microscopic layers of dust and minerals that have settled into the geoglyphs over time. These layers hold a climate record, a history of droughts and rains that could tell us what the world was like when the creators were scraping the stones. Perhaps a layer of pollen from a specific plant preserved for centuries could reveal the season in which the work was done. But the most vital research is not done in a lab, it is done in partnership. Continued and deepened collaboration with the Mojave and Quechan tribal nations is the cornerstone of the site's future. Their oral histories are not just stories, they are data sets of meaning, providing the cultural context that turns archaeological facts into a complete narrative. Future projects might involve tribal youth in monitoring the site, using traditional knowledge to guide conservation efforts, and ensuring that every new discovery is filtered through the lens of those who have always understood the giants best. This collaborative model is the true blueprint for preservation, recognizing that the site's greatest protection comes from the community for whom it is a living heart, not a distant relic. Yet the threats are evolving faster than ever. Increasing visitor numbers, while a testament to the site's growing fame, bring a constant low-level pressure. Each stray footstep, each piece of litter, each moment of climbing the fence for a photo accumulates into a force of erosion. The climate itself is becoming an adversary, with more intense, unpredictable storms that can send flash floods scouring across the terraces, washing away the carefully cleared soil in minutes. Prolonged droughts stress the delicate desert crust, making it more vulnerable to both wind and the impact of feet. We must get creative to balance access with survival. One promising idea is the development of immersive virtual reality tours. Imagine standing anywhere in the world, putting on a headset, and not just seeing an aerial photo, but feeling as if you're walking the perimeter of the giant figure at dawn, hearing the wind with a tribal elder's voice explaining the story of Mastamho. This technology could offer a profound, educational experience to thousands without a single person needing to drive down that dusty road, drastically reducing physical impact while exponentially expanding understanding. Drones, already used for mapping, could provide live, high-definition feeds for virtual visits, making the site accessible to classrooms and researchers globally. On the ground, conservation might involve more subtle interventions, like using biodegradable materials to gently stabilize trench edges against storm runoff, or creating shaded, educational waypoints at a greater distance from the figures to disperse visitor concentration. The goal is not to lock the past away in a vault, but to use every tool available to transmit its power without causing its decay. This work is a covenant with the future. It is a promise that a child 100 years from now will still be able to stand on that platform, feel the same desert wind, and experience that same breathtaking moment of revelation when the giant emerges from the stones. The lines in the earth are a message we have been entrusted to deliver forward, ensuring that this silent, sprawling wonder continues to whisper its ancient questions to generations yet unborn. A journey that began with a pilot's glimpse from the clouds ends here on the ground, facing a mystery written in stone and sand. We have traveled from the stark enigma of giant desert figures into a rich tapestry woven from archaeology, oral tradition, and celestial wonder. We have met the possible creators, the resilient Pathan people, and the enduring Mojave and Quechan nations, whose stories of Mastamho and Qatar breathe life into the lines. We have wrestled with an age that could span from 2,000 years to just a few centuries, a timeline held in the silent soil. We have pondered purposes that range from sacred ceremonial stages to vast territorial markers, even maps of the stars themselves. The Blythe Intaglios refuse to surrender a single, simple truth. Instead, they offer a constellation of possibilities, each one deepening our awe for the minds that conceived them. They stand not as a problem to be solved, but as a permanent invitation to wonder. Their greatest lesson may be this: the American landscape is not an empty stage for recent history. It is a palimpsest, a parchment written and rewritten over millennia, holding deep, ancient stories in its very soil. These desert giants are a powerful reminder to look closer, to listen to the wind, and to remember that sometimes the most profound messages are not shouted, but whispered across centuries in the gentle language of a scraped earth. What do you think the quadruped truly represents? Share your theories on this enduring mystery in the comments below. If you were captivated by this journey into the deep past, subscribe for more explorations of history's greatest enigmas. And perhaps one day you might find yourself on that lonely desert road, feeling the sun and the silence, ready to meet the giants for yourself.